Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Welcome back. So excited to have you in here for another episode of Read With Me sessions. This is the financial freedom episode. We are diving deep into the cash flow quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. We are on chapter 2, part 2 out of 3 in this particular segment. And the last part that we just went over, which is the part 1 of chapter 2, is basically going into what was the E, what is the S, and what is the B. So now we're going to get into some really interesting things because we're about to get into the psychology of those three. He's going to get into the investor side in a few minutes, but he's about to go in on what the E and the S and the B, the psychology of it all. Okay, so make sure to take out your water, your tea, your wine if you want to. Do what you got to do. Okay, because we're about to get into this, and this is going to be on and popping. So without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Awesome. So entrepreneurial development. I often hear the words, I'm going to start my own business. Many people tend to believe that the way to financial security and happiness is to do your own thing or to develop a new product no one else has. So they rush out and start their own business. And in many cases, this is the path they take. So it shows going from the E to the S. Many wind up starting an S type of business and not a B type of business. Again, one is not necessarily better than the other. Both have different strengths, weaknesses, risks, and rewards. But many people who want to start a B type of business wind up with an S type of business and become stalled in their quest to move to the right side. Many new entrepreneurs want to do this, but they wind up instead doing this and getting stuck. Many of them attempt to do this, which is going from the S to the B and just skipping over. But only a few who attempt this actually make it. Why, do you ask? Well, because the technical skills and human skills to be successful in each quadrant are extremely difficult. You must learn the skills and the mindset required by each quadrant in order to find the true success within each one. The difference between an S type of business and a B type of business. Those who are true Bs can leave their business for a year or more and return to find their business more profitable and running better than when they left it. In a true S type of business, if the S left for a year or more, chances are there would be no more business to run or even to return to. So what causes the difference? Saying it simply, an S owns a job. A B owns a system and then hires competent people to operate that system. Or put another way, in many cases, the S is the system. That is why they can't leave. For example, let's take a look at a typical dentist. A dentist spends years in school learning to become a self-contained system. You, the client, get a toothache. You go to see your dentist. He fixes your tooth. You pay and you go home. You're happy and you tell all your friends about your great dentist. And in most cases, the dentist can do the entire job by himself. The problem is that if the dentist goes on vacation, so does his income. B, a B business. A B business owner can go on vacation forever because they own a system, not a job. If the B is on vacation, the money still comes in. To be successful as a B, it requires these two main things: ownership or control of systems and the ability to lead people. For S's to evolve into B's, they need to convert who they are and what they know into a system. And many people aren't able to do that. They are often too attached to the system to let go and have other people use that system. There's so much depth in there. Like, I hope you really, really took that. If you are a coach, if you are an entrepreneur, if you are a business owner and you just heard that, best believe that you're in a position where you can transition from an S to a B. Okay. And if you don't know how to do that transition, please stay tuned because we're about to get into this. Okay. And we need to all be B's, aka billionairettes. Okay, so let's get into it. Can you make a better hamburger than McDonald's? Many people come to me for advice on how to start a company or how to raise money for a new product or idea. I listen, usually for about 10 minutes, and within that time, I can tell where their focus is. Is it the product or the business system? In those 10 minutes, I most often hear words such as these. Remember the importance of being a good listener and allowing words to direct you to the core values of that person. So if that person is saying, this is far better product than company X, Y, and Z, or I've looked everywhere and no one else has this product, or I'll give you the idea for the product, all I want is 25% of the profits, or maybe I've been working on this product / book / music or even invention for years. Those are key indicators that these are words of people generally operating from the left side, the E or the S side. It's important to be gentle at this time because I'm dealing with core values and ideas that have been entrenched for years, maybe handed down for generations. And if I'm not gentle or patient, I could damage a fragile and sensitive launch of an idea, and more importantly, a human being ready to evolve into another quadrant. The hamburger and the business. Since I need to be gentle at this point in the conversation, I often use the McDonald's hamburger example for clarification. After listening to the pitch, I slowly ask, can you personally make a better hamburger than McDonald's? So far, 100% of the people I've talked with about their new idea or product have said yes. They can all prepare, cook, and serve a better quality hamburger than McDonald's. Next, I asked them, can you personally build a better business system than McDonald's? Some people see the difference immediately and some don't. And I would say the difference is whether the person is fixated on the left side of the quadrant, which is focused on the idea of the better burger, or on the right side of the quadrant, which is focused on the best, on the business system. I do my best to explain that there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there offering far superior products or services than are offered by mega rich multinational corporations, just as there are billions of people who can make a better burger than McDonald's. But only McDonald's has created the system that has served billions of burgers. So see the other side. If people can begin to see the truth, I then suggest they go to McDonald's, buy a burger, and sit and look at the system that delivered that burger. Take note of the trucks that delivered the raw burger, the rancher that raised the beef, the buyer who bought the beef, and the TV ads that helped sell the beef. Notice the training of the young, inexperienced people to say the same words. Hello, welcome to McDonald's. As well as the decor of the franchise, the regional offices, the bakeries, and the bake the ones that bake the buns, and the millions of pounds of French fries that taste exactly the same all over the world. Then include the stockbrokers raising money for McDonald's on Wall Street. If they can begin to understand the whole picture, then they have a chance to moving to the B and I side. The reality is that there are unlimited new ideas, billions of people with services or products to offer, millions of products, and only a few people who actually know how to build excellent business systems. Bill Gates didn't build a great product. He bought someone else's product and built a powerful global system around it. That whole thing was powerful. And now we get into number 4, which is the investor, the I. Investors make money with money. They don't have to work because their money is working for them. The quadrant, the I quadrant, is the playground of the rich. Regardless of which quadrant people make their money in, if they hope someday to be rich, they ultimately must come to the I quadrant. It's the I quadrant that makes money become, that makes money convert into wealth. Okay, let me repeat that. The I quadrant is the playground of the rich. Regardless of which quadrant people make their money in, if they hope someday to be rich, they ultimately must come to the I quadrant. It's in the I quadrant that money becomes converted into wealth. The cash flow quadrant. The cash flow quadrant simply makes distinctions on how income is generated, whether as an E, employee, S, self-employed, B, business owner, or I, investor. The differences are summarized below. E, you have a job. S, you own a job. A B, you own a system and people work for you. And then I, money works for you. OPT, and OPM. OPT and OPM. Most of us have heard that the secrets to the great riches and great wealth are these two. OPT means other people's time, and then OPM is other people's money. OPT and OPM were found in the B and I quadrants. For the most part, people who work in the E and S quadrants are the OP, other people whose time and money are being used. A primary reason Kim and I took the time to build a B type of business rather than an S type was because we recognize the long-term benefit of using other people's time. One of the drawbacks to being a successful S is that success simply means more hard work. In other words, good work results in more hard work and longer hours. In designing a B-type business, success simply means increasing the system when hiring more people. In other words, you work less, earn more, and enjoy more free time. The remainder of this book goes into the skills and mindset required for the right side of cash flow quadrant. It's my experience that being successful on the right side requires a different mindset and different technical skills. If people are flexible enough to make these changes, I think they'll find the process of achieving greater financial security or freedom extremely easy. For other people, the process might be too difficult because many people are frozen in one quadrant and one mindset. At a minimum, you'll find out why some people work less, earn more, pay less in taxes, and feel way more financially secure than others. It's simply a matter of knowing which quadrant to work out of and when. A guide to freedom. The cash flow quadrant is not a set of rules. It's only a guide for those who wish to use it. It guided Kim and me from financial struggle to financial security and then to financial freedom. The difference between the rich and everyone else. A few years ago, I read an article that said most rich people receive 70% of their income from investments, or the I Quadrant, and less than 30% from wages, or the E Quadrant. If they were an E, chances are that they were employees of their own corporation. Their income looked like this. I has 70% and then E has 30%. For most, everyone else, the poor and the middle class, at least 80% of their income comes from wages from the E or the S quadrants, and less than 20% from investments in the I quadrant. The difference between being rich and being wealthy. In chapter 1, I wrote that Kim and I were millionaires by 1989, but we weren't financially free until 1994. There's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. By 1989, our business was making us a lot of money. We were earning more and working less because the business systems were growing without any more physical effort on our part. We had achieved what most people would consider financial success. However, we still needed to convert that cash flow coming from the business into a more tangible asset that would generate additional cash flow. We had grown our business into a success. Now it was time to focus on growing our assets to the point where the cash flow from all of our assets would be greater than our living expenses. By 1994, the passive income from all of our assets was greater than our expenses. At that point, we were wealthy. Our business is considered an asset because it generated income and operated without much physical input. For our own personal sense of wealth, we wanted to make sure we also had tangible assets, such as real estate and stocks, that were throwing off more passive income than our expenses before we claimed to be wealthy. Once the income coming from tangible assets in our asset column was greater than money coming in from our businesses, we sold the business to our partner. We were now wealthy. Interesting. The definition of wealth. The definition of wealth is the number of days you can survive without physically working, or anyone else in your household physically working, and still maintain your standard of living. That is the definition of wealth. Let me read that again, y'all. Okay. The definition of wealth. The definition of wealth is the number of days you can survive without physically working, or anyone else in your household physically working, and still maintain your standard of living. So for example, if your monthly expenses are $5,000 a month and you have $20,000 in savings, your wealth is approximately 4 months and 120 days. Wealth is measured in time, not dollars. By 1994, Kim and I were wealthy indefinitely, bearing great economic changes because the income from our investments was greater than our monthly expenses. Ultimately, it's not how much money you make that matters, but how much money you can keep and how long that money works for you. Every day, I meet many people who make a lot of money, but all of their money goes out the expense column. Every time they make a little bit of more money, they go shopping. They often buy a bigger house or a new car, which results in long-term debt and more hard work. Nothing is left to go back into their asset column. The money goes out so fast that you'd think that they took some kind of financial laxative. Terrible joke. Terrible joke, Robert. Their cash flow pattern looks like this. And he shares this particular diagram. Awesome. Red line finances. Okay. In the world of cars, there's a saying about keeping the engine at red line. Red line means the throttle is keeping the RPMs of the engine close to the red line, the maximum speed the car's engine can maintain without blowing up. Many people, rich and poor, operate constantly at the financial red line of their personal expenses or their finances. No matter how much money they make, they spend it as fast as it comes in. The trouble with operating your car's engine at a red line is that the life expectancy of the engine is shortened. The same is true with operating your finances at the red line. Several of my doctor friends say that one of the main problems they see today is stress caused by working hard and never having enough money. One says that the biggest cause of health disorders is something she calls cancer of the wallet. That's intense. Making money making money, okay? Regardless of how much money people make, ultimately they should put some in the I quadrant. The I quadrant is where money makes more money. It's based on the idea that your money works so hard for you that you don't have to work at all. Although the I quadrant is important to your financial health, there are other forms of investing worth noting. Other forms of investing. People invest into their education. Traditional education is important. The more education you have, the better your chances may be to earn more money, depending on your choice of profession. Now, given that the average person spends 40 years or more actively working, college or some type of higher education may be a good investment. Giving your loyalty and best efforts to an employer is another form of investment. In return, via contract, the employee is rewarded with a pension for life. This was a form of investment popular in the age of the industrial age that is now almost obsolete in the information age. Other people invest in having large families and in turn have their children care for them in their old age. That form of investing was the norm in the past. Yet due to economic constraints in the past, it has become more difficult for families to handle the living and medical expenses of parents. Government retirement programs such as Social Security and Medicare, which are often paid through payroll deductions, are another form of investment mandated by law. Due to massive changes in demographics at cost, this form of investment will probably not be able to keep many of the promises it has made. And there are independent investment vehicles for retirement that are called individual retirement plans. Often the federal government will offer tax incentives to both the employer and the employee to participate in such plans. In America, for instance, one popular plan is the 401k, which is a retirement plan. In countries such as Australia, they are called superannuation plans. Interesting. Income received from investments. Although, and we'll end with this, income received from investments. Although the above are all forms of investing, the I quadrant focuses on investments that generate income on an ongoing basis during your working years. So to qualify as a person who operates as an I, use the same criteria used in all the other quadrants. Do you receive current income from the I quadrant? In other words, is your money working for you and generating current income for you? Let's look at a person who buys a house as an investment and rents it out. If the rent collected is greater than the expenses to operate the property, that income is coming from the quadrant, the I quadrant. The same is true for people who receive interest from savings or dividends from stocks and bonds. So the qualifier for the I quadrant is how much income you generate from the quadrant without working for it. And that is, part 2 of chapter 2. It's such a powerful chapter, just for the ability to get a very clear understanding of what, the red line finances are, and truly operating in a state of understanding. Like, it's one thing to say, yeah, I own my own business, but do you really? You know, he clearly mentions that in E, you have a job, you're an employee, you work a 9 to 5, you have a clock in, you have a lunch hour, you get off at a certain time, okay? And then there's an S, that you own a job. I would consider most people to be an S, at least from the people who we work with, because they're either a solopreneur that own a job, like a coach or an entrepreneur or a business owner. You know, business owner is really someone that owns a system and people work for you. So that's a B. Okay. And then there's an I, money works for you. So really dig deep within yourself. Like, are you an S? Do you own a job? Are you currently a solopreneur where like you have to be the one to take the call? You have to be the one that if someone has a question, you're the one that they go to, or, you know, can you, I love this example, like the ability to actually leave your business. He mentions, and I think this is something very, very true for a lot of people, because you might be an employee and then all of a sudden you're like, you know what, let me just start my own thing, and then don't realize you don't know how to be an S, you know, you don't know how to manage everything that comes with being an S. Okay, those are the skill sets that he keeps talking about, that if you want to transition from an E to an S, you got to learn those skill sets. You got to apply that. And if you don't, you get burned, just like his poor dad. You know, that's what happened to him. He was an E, he tried to become an S, he even tried to be a B, but he just got stuck. You know, fear ate all of that up, you know. But he mentions that the people in as an S can transition as Bs. Again, that skill set to go from an S of you owning your job and then transitioning to a B, putting a system in place that can work outside of you, that is that big transition for financial freedom, for personal freedom, for just being financially healthy. Because he's mentioning that a B can leave for a vacation for a year and then come back to the company, and literally the company has grown in size, it's more profitable than ever, it runs on its own. That's what a B is. An S, if you were to leave for a year, you're gonna come back to zero. You're gonna come back to like a lot of stuff not being there, or not working, or pretty much just burned. Okay, so you gotta start thinking of how can I turn myself, or how can I do, if you're currently an S, I'm speaking as an S, I'm speaking for people that are currently S's and are looking to transition into B's. How can you turn yourself into a system that other people can plug into and actually grow it without you being there? The rest of this book, okay, is going to actually cover all that. So make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe, and make sure to share this with someone that is looking to make that transition. And if it's you, congratulations, because you are a B, all right, a billionaireette. So make sure to check out the Billionaire Inner Circle. It's going to be in the description below, and definitely looking forward to all the amazing freedom heading to your life and your soul. So without further ado, my name is Isabel. It was a pleasure reading the part 2 of chapter 2. Check out the next video. We're going to get into part 3.